I do find and have in our experience found that any policy that you get a template for or you download is not valuable at all unless you use it. And so it's important to also take almost the top step, which is customizing it for your business, making sure you hit all of your compliances and regulations that are required for your business, but also not giving yourself an out. Like, I don't like that one, I'm just going to erase that one from my policy. I don't like it because that will ultimately not lead to a substantial foundation for policies. I do like to caution people in making sure that if you gain templates, you get them from your known IT firm or your security firm, such as ourselves might be your firm or your security provider. We have had one customer that was a small bank that downloaded some policies from the internet before they came to us. They were full of ransomware, and the bank was ransomware. So that is a really big red flag of caution, to know where you're getting the template from, whether you're getting a free template from your already existing service provider of some sort, or you're going to pay for someone to come help establish something, or just review what you already wrote to see if you meet all the needs of the firm, your firm. I think that those are fine approaches, and I just caution on the Googling, finding one, and worry about what you might introduce. It does feel like a checklist, and indeed it is not a checklist. It's much, much more. I would say beyond having the foundational information security program, which includes, policies and procedures, the risk assessment is super important. And why is that important? Let's say that Donnie has a business and he does a risk assessment on himself. That's very subjective. Donnie's looking at it from his own viewpoint. He's not doing a third-party penetration test. He's doing his own testing. He's not doing the third-party vulnerability assessment. He's doing his own. He's not doing any identification of controls and their effectiveness. He's figuring this out on his own within his own team or his own mind. No problem there, except for, as we all know, testing things outside of oneself is always a better method to getting better and progressively better. So if you take that risk assessment, you engage a third party, even if it's in your MSP, ask for the report, look at the recommendations, create a plan to reduce or eliminate any risk that's on that assessment, and act on it, and be willing to share that with your board of directors or your group that is managing it, such as executive steering committee. If they don't know, if you're hiding the risk, or if you're running over the risk like Donnie, and he's just assessing himself. I'm sorry, Donnie, just picking on you because you're there. If you're running over your own self by thinking, yeah, that's good, that's good, that's good, that's good, you might be missing things. And some of the biggest things we've heard about in years past are big retailers that allow a third party in, such as assessing third party service provider, allowing a third party in, ignoring whether the third party is doing what you're doing. And then all of a sudden they've introduced a risk, ransomware, malware, viruses, open ports, and they've introduced a new risk that you weren't aware of with your report that you get from your MSP on vulnerabilities. You didn't know that the third party introduced a brand new risk. So you have to look at all of it, respond to it, and look at it objectively. And even if you don't go to a third party that's known for penetration testing or known for vulnerability assessments, I would say create a team and have the team with some expertise do the test outside of the normal person that does the test, such that you feel really good about that no one can penetrate your environment, or that vulnerabilities still exist that are high, critical, or even moderate that could grow. And so hidden under that penetration test and vulnerability assessments, not only is third-party service provider assessments, but patching. People push down patching. Like, it's no big deal. We patch twice a year. And we patch everything. Do you know that patching could happen more than once a day? That's how many things actually should be patched in the world, depending on the size of your environment. So having some kind of cadence and control to patching vulnerabilities and watching the criticality and watching how many of them you have is so important. It all starts with a risk assessment and looking at the recommendations. So almost 100% of our customers, the first time we see their policies, we're going to see something that has been rubber stamped, not presented and informed, or purchased and placed on the internet. And that's something that Rob is going to not care for when he receives a claim, for sure. And we coach people in why those three options are not the best. Now, on the flip side of that, we've had one particular customer that was adamant that they had to have everyone in the company's opinion about every security control and policy, and they all had to be in agreement. And if you can imagine that took over a year to get even a substantial amount of people in agreement, because sometimes you have cultural mismatches over time, whether it's the size of the company or the philosophy, or whether you are entrepreneurial or not. You have little cultural mismatches, and it's our job to help you narrow the cultural mismatch to what you can live with the most difficult security control that you can handle, and the ones that don't seem like you can handle it. Discuss what the scenarios are where it could be a bad thing if you don't do something. Now, as you mature, those things are going to live in your risk assessment to the risk register, or the risk assessment to the POAM, and you're going to be always iterating on changing something. Maybe multi-factor authentication decides that SMS is no longer a good protocol and throws it out the window, and that's what you have and that's what you love, and now what do we do next? And so you're always going to be iterating on those things. The key, though, here, once you get things in something that works for your business, that has best practice for cybersecurity in mind, and you test what you do, is that the owners, the executives, and management understand what is happening, so that they can take their fiduciary responsibility if a breach does happen, that they've done everything in their power to make this work. And also that, along the way, they're not uninformed about what it could be, such that one of your employees calls and said, hey, I need an exception because I don't like this policy, and some executive gives the exception. And then your policies, procedures, practices, programs crumble, maybe due to one person's exception. So it's important to discuss, agree, align, get the cultural mismatches close as you possibly can, security best practice. But if you need support, an advisor is going to be always wedged in the middle there to help you with that support.